Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, alongside my co-host, Tyson Gentry, who's gone hatless today, ladies and gentlemen, watching on the YouTube channel. You'll notice something different. He's showing off his beautiful locks of hair that he has. So he's got a full beard and a full head of hair.
Something like that. I just went to give the little hat tip and just realized I didn't have it on. It's working. I got a real job, so I got to dress like an idiot and can't wear a hat.
I'm always shocked, like when we watch like the Ryder Cup or something like that, and you see the golfers without their hats. Like, oh wait, that's what they look like.
This guy's got a full head of hair, $400 million in the bank, and that swing. That's not fair.
I know it really isn't. It really isn't. But folks, we're back with another NFL recap. This time, Week 10. So very, very interesting games that we'll get into. Really going to talk about and focus on the Bills because that was a huge story that came out as they move on from their offensive coordinator. We'll talk about them in a big picture. AFC North right now is just an insane division, so we're touching on that. Then we're going to get into a speed round of real or Fugazi at the end here as we're starting to get a playoff picture all pieced together. But Tyson, how was your Week 10 overall?
It was fun. Like, this was one of the more classic NFL weekends that I can remember. We had 6 total game-winning field goal attempts, if you count Monday night, which is crazy because the games themselves weren't fantastic. I don't think, at least watch it. It's a little harder to take it in on Red Zone, to be honest. I got to get into the NFL Plus stuff coming up here, but I mean, outside of that Lions-Chargers game and the Texans-Bengals game, there was a lot of sleepy offenses, it felt like, around the league. Luckily, everybody seemed to be asleep this week.
Yeah, there was, like you said, the football wasn't great. I think it got exciting at the end, and we're just like, oh, man, what is going on? And then you had, the Browns-Ravens was a great finish. Falcons-Cardinals, electric. Lions-Chargers, another 3-point game. And I'm basically just naming off all the end-of-the-game field goal situations. But like you said, it was entertaining, and that's what we get with the NFL. Like, that's the reason why these point spreads for those gamblers out there, they're so small, and it's like on a knife edge. Like, you have to get a certain number here or there, or else you're screwed.
Yeah, and some idiot on the podcast last week was saying they thought the Jaguars could beat the 49ers. What a dumbass.
That's going to do it for our early Week 10 recap. Let's dive into what really everybody's talking about right now, Tyson. That's the Bills, because there is a lot of turmoil coming out of what we just witnessed on Monday night. And because that's the Bills as 7.5-point favorites, lost outright to the Denver Broncos and are now 5-5. And let's be honest, probably should be 4-6 because they got away with one against the Giants like 3 weeks ago with some pass interference on that Monday Night Football. They have fired Ken Dorsey, the offensive coordinator. Josh Allen has regressed massively. He now leads the league in interceptions and total turnovers. So, I mean, just what's your thoughts on what is going on in Buffalo?
I think that this is closer to who they actually are, to be honest with you. I think we've seen pieces of this version of the Bills team scattered into those fantastic seasons where they kind of, at first, when they first got Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen makes that huge jump, catch the league by surprise, nobody's really prepared for what this offense is going to look like. And then every offseason since then, are they going to be able to run the ball? Well, no, but it doesn't matter because they can throw it. Is the defense going to be good? Yeah. Is it going to be good enough to win a Super Bowl? Probably not. Are they going to be good in close games? Yeah. What about against the good teams? No. And now we're at this point, Brad, where the games like 2 years ago when they lost to Jacksonville and everyone was scratching their heads and what the heck? And then they did it twice more last year. And they've done it 4 times now this season, losing to bad teams, right? They lose to the Broncos, obviously, last night. Dude, a week ago, they barely beat the Bucks. 2 weeks ago, they lose to the Patriots, a team that just put up 6 points against the Indianapolis Colts defense. Look, man, I don't know if Sean McDermott's going down with the ship or if this was hey, we got to try something, but this team probably isn't going to make the playoffs. And everything is about to change in Buffalo.
The betting odds have an implied probability of them missing the playoffs at a 71.9% chance.
Oh, my goodness.
This is a team that was one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl. They were one of my picks. I just felt all the pressure was off from last year. They have a new defensive mind in there. It's something fresh, the more focus on the trenches that they built in the offseason. I think injuries have hurt this team, but that's not an excuse. Injuries hurt every team. This is the NFL. I want to start here with Dorsey. Has Ken Dorsey been a good offensive coordinator since taking over for Brian Daboll? No. The past 2 years, the offense has not looked the same. And I know like all the advanced stats, and we pull them up every once in a while, but every advanced stat says, look at this offense. It's so good. The EPA and the efficiency thing. I think that's where sometimes you can get into trouble with those stats, where it's like, that's not matching what I'm watching on the field, because what I'm seeing is an offense that heavily relies on big Stephon Diggs games. Because if he's taken out of the game like the Broncos did yesterday, who's their other option? You got a rookie tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Gabe Davis dropped the ball that hit him in the hands that was one of the turnovers and really stunted this offense, I thought, for the rest of the game. And like you said, the running game, yeah, it looks great on paper yesterday. That took James Cook busting off a deep run late.
What he double dribbles on? I've never seen that before in my life. He just drops the ball, bounces directly back to him
perfectly. I mean, it's bad, man. This offense has no creativity, and so now they go with Joe Brady, somebody who you're familiar with.
Yes, LSU, former LSU offensive coordinator, was the offensive coordinator for that Joe Burrow team. Was the offensive coordinator in Carolina. That didn't work out, Brad. He lost his job, and it's not the same. It's not apples to apples, right? Now he's walking into a situation with Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and these guys. The bigger issue, I think, more so than offensive coordinator or anything else, and more so even than Josh Allen's turnovers, which we'll get into, this team has no identity. They haven't had one in 4 years. Like, for real. Like, we think about them like they're the JV Chiefs almost. And it's okay when they lose games, but it's not okay when the Chiefs lose games, because, like, cognitively, we know they're not the same. But we wanted them to be the same so bad for so long, and it's finally gotten to the point where they're not going to out-physical anybody. They're going to find a way to make the game muddy, right? They're like the reverse Baltimore Ravens, where when the Ravens get out to a big lead, they let you right back into it. The Bills just let you into the game immediately. They're just like, all right, well, it doesn't matter if we're supposed to be 10 points better than you today, because we didn't really feel like getting off the bus. And that's happened way too many times for a team with this kind of, like, the way we talk about the Buffalo Bills, and it's been bugging me for so long, like with this team, is what big games have the Buffalo Bills won in the last 5 years?
Oh,
like, for
man.
real, a playoff game here or there, right? But the moments that we remember, they lost that coin flip to Pat Mahomes. They lost the game. They lost to the Bengals. They lose, like, whenever they get one monkey off their back, they get bullied by the next. They'll never make the top of the mountain as this team is currently constructed, and it's never been more obvious than it was last night. But we should have seen this coming from a while, for a ways.
Yeah, I bought back into the Bills before the season started. I quickly was like, I'm like, man, this defense looks elite. Like, they were flying around. I'm like, okay, this is a team that I think, once they get back guys healthy, that can actually compete if Josh Allen, if this offense continues to kind of operate in the way they had. And the wheels fell off. And that happens. You got to be able to have a counter. And for the past 3 seasons, the Buffalo Bills have not been able to counter. And it's something that we've discussed. When somebody kind of figures them out, they don't sit there and go, oh, no, we're prepared. We're ready. This is something we can go to. They're like, oh, what do we do now? And it just falls apart. So now I want to move into the McDermott thing. I think he gets fired at the end of the season. This is unacceptable. You have gone from a team that legitimately 3 years ago was an incompetent ending from the head coach away from being in the Super Bowl, or at least competing for the Super Bowl, right? And now you're sitting at 5-5, should be under 500, are probably going to miss the playoffs. That is just not good enough. And this is a what have you done for me lately type of business. Tyson, what have they done for me lately? They look outcoached every Sunday, they look unprepared. And under his watch, we have seen a guy who is an ascending talent, top 3 QB in the NFL, deteriorate for the past 2 years. If I'm sitting there at the Bills, this is the best quarterback we've had in a long time, or if I'm the owner, I'm cleaning house. I'm tearing this thing down to the studs, knowing that I have this quarterback who has longevity, and I'm saying, okay, what can we put around him? What do we need to do to put around him to make us be able to do a quick rebuild? How can we do it? Let's get somebody in here who knows how to quickly turn something around and pair them together and just see if we can get it back on track. Because as I'm seeing it right now, they're stuck in neutral, and it's not going to change until they make an aggressive move.
And I don't know what that move's going to be, though, is the thing. Like, you bring in Stephon Diggs, and it elevates the offense, and he's awesome. He's all pro. We know that. Josh Allen's awesome. You go out and get Dalton Kincaid. Early returns look really good on your first-round draft pick there. You spin the capital on James Cook. You bring in a guy like Damian Harris. You bring in a guy like Latavius Murray. You spend, I think it was a third-round pick on Gabe Davis. Like, they have invested – you have invested in this offense. Again, for me, the whole thing goes back to the no identity. Like, when you have Ed Oliver talking about how he's happy to get his bonus like halfway through the season, that's what his mind was on a team that is like floundering a little bit. Like, let's go ahead and look at the rest of the Bill schedule here. They play the Jets next week. Then they have the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Cowboys, the Chargers, the Patriots, and the Dolphins. Before the season, you would have said Buffalo, at least goes 3-2 in those games. Should be looking at 4 wins out of that stretch, right? Or they at least win 4. They might win 5. Right now, it's like, dude, I don't like. They're not going to beat the Eagles. It doesn't feel like. It doesn't feel like they're better than the Chiefs. It feels like the Cowboys are going to run them out of town, and it's going to be the same story over and over again. I think for Sean McDermott, this has to work, or he's going to be looking for work. Like, he's going to need a new job. Like, if Joe Brady doesn't come in and turn this thing around immediately, which is an impossible task, by the way. The offense might show up fired up next week against the Jets and put up 30 points, and we're all going to be right back in. How's he supposed to walk in and change the scheme with guys that he's never even met? Like, he's going to be introducing himself. Oh, by the way, learn a new playbook. We got 6 weeks left. This thing is cooked. Like, put the fork in them. The Buffalo Bills are done. They've been done. We've just been mental gymnastics our way through the Buffalo Bills situation and the way we feel about them. This is why last week I was saying that everyone keeps talking about how the AFC is so much better than the NFC. And the Bills are the prime example. Because Buffalo is one of the top teams in the AFC. That's all we've ever thought. That's all we knew. They beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins can't beat a good team. They're 5-5, man. The Bills are the litmus test for everybody else. If you can beat the Bills, you can go to the playoffs and win the Super Bowl. If you get beat by the Bills, you're probably screwed.
Couple names here. This from 33rd team that they throw out that I've sifted through. Mike Borgonzi, assistant GM from the Chiefs. He's been there for 14 years. Brett Veach has been incredible for Kansas City. You want to talk about an identity? They have that there. And I'll throw out another one that I think would be great. Adam Peters, the assistant GM for the Niners. That dude's a hot name right now. Working under John Lynch. If you want to establish something in Buffalo, an identity, the Niners, they have an identity. Trenches, physicality. I think he could be able to build it there. So something to think about if you're the Pagula family up in Buffalo.
Well, why is Josh Allen blameless through this whole thing?
I think he's getting criticized. I definitely don't think he's blameless.
I don't think he's getting nearly enough heat. I don't think that if Joe Burrow had these numbers or if Patrick Mahomes had like these numbers without winning, let's keep that in mind, right? This is a guy who hasn't won. If Jalen Hurts had these numbers and hadn't made the Super Bowl, if like all these guys, when it happens to Dak Prescott, Dak sucks and we write him off. When it happens to whoever, like run through the list, these are guys that you just kind of look at and you go, yeah, I don't know if he can win the big one. But when we look at Josh Allen, we think, oh, it's everybody else. Like, he's going to be able to figure it out. He's going to do it because he's the new Brett Favre, and it's fun, and it's awesome watching him sling the ball around. Some of these things are inexcusable, and we talk about the interceptions. Dude, the fumbles are so much worse. The fumbles are so 100%. Much worse.
You can't fumble.
And they're controlled. Like, that's a Josh Allen issue. And those, like, when Daniel Jones fumbles that much, it becomes like everyone knows in the world, everyone knows that Daniel Jones needs to work on the fumbling issue. When Josh Allen does it, it's whatever. Like, he's trying to make a big play. If he can't learn to take what's in front of him, this team will never win. They'll never win at the level they want to. And time's passing by quick, man. This is not a 23-year-old kid we're talking about anymore.
No, and the window feels closed under the current regime. I honestly think the Buffalo Bills, you got to make changes. This is a season where you got to make moves after this because writing is on the wall. They hit their ceiling under Sean McDermott, and I don't think
that Von Miller contract's looking real bad right now, brother.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Billy Bean got fired as well, or Brandon Bean, I believe, right?
Billy Bean too.
Billy Bean, yeah. Okay, let's get into the AFC North discussion here. Went long on Bills, but I think that's what really the news was. The reason why we want to touch on the AFC North right now. Ravens are 7-3, Steelers and Browns are 6-3, Bengals are 5-4. All four of their teams are above 500. This is one of the best divisions in football in terms of that they win. Like, I don't know how good the Steelers are. Honestly, we love Joe Burrow and the Bengals. It's starting to get to that point. You know, they're starting to be out of the picture a little bit too. Now they can flip it on its head, but their defense is relying on a lot of turnovers with that young talent they have there instead of producing a solid defense. Let's put it that way. So Ravens and Browns to me are the cream of the crop of this division because of their defense. Ravens have a better offense than the Browns, but before we hop down here, if Deshaun Watson looks like he did in their victory over the Ravens, ooh, man, this is a scary team all of a sudden.
If second half Deshaun Watson shows up for the rest of the year, they're probably going to be one of the 4 teams left. Like that's how it's going to work because this defense it's unreal. And look, it feels weird and it feels wrong to say that the Browns and the Ravens are the 2 best teams probably in this division here, especially with the Steelers being 6-3. Dude, the Steelers have scored 150 points in 9 games. How is this? How do they keep getting away with this? Like,
I don't know.
They've scored 156 total points. They've allowed 182. They have a negative point differential, and they're sitting here at 6-3. And I just went in on the Bills a little bit. I'm going to go in on the Ravens a little bit too. I thought about it a lot over the last 24 hours of like, why does this keep happening to Baltimore? And I think, Brad, the reason is because Harbaugh is maybe not quite look, he's great. He's awesome. But I don't think he's as smart as he thinks he is. And that's kind of like where I'm stuck with this team because they have, I think it's the third or fourth least amount of time spent trailing through their first 10 games in the NFL season. Every other team was 10-0. They're sitting here at 7-3. These end of game errors that they continue to make, no matter who they're playing, right? It's funny at times when it's like, oh, it's just the AFC North, and of course the Browns are going to make it a game, or of course the Steelers are going to make it a game. But that doesn't excuse some of the other times when they're playing nobodies or teams that they should run away from, and all of a sudden they make it a game, right? Like, how does this team beat the Cardinals by 7 after beating the Lions by 32? They lose to the Colts in a game that they gave away, right? Like, I don't think that there's a team in the AFC North that can win the Super Bowl.
I think if anybody can, it's the Ravens.
Are you trusting them?
Those 3 losses, no, that's the thing. Like, if you look at their 3 losses, they're all, like you said, this team should be undefeated.
They just give games away.
Undefeated. They should be sitting here at 10-0. That's how good this team is. But yet they're sitting at 7-3, and we're like, well, I don't know if they played the end of game scenario correctly. And it's not just a Harbaugh thing either. I mean, you love Marv more than I do.
He does. He does.
He's made some.
Yeah. He sells, man. He was
selling,
and he got bailed out on one too when they get a defensive holding. Lamar sees the flag, and instead of taking a shot, he throws a pick.
Yeah, and the thing that always come back to is what you said. Can you trust them? Because in years past, when it was fun and they were flying around, we always knew, I think there's going to be some limitations when they hit the playoffs. And it showed up. And it showed up. They got absolutely embarrassed every time in the playoffs under that former iteration. Okay, so well, how can we address things? Well, let's improve our defense, because if we want to run the ball, we need the ball in our hand more. Then we can limit how many points we trail by if it comes to it. Injuries decimated them on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. It's hard to. We said that with the Bills. It's not an excuse. And the Ravens were in an infirmary, and that was reality. They're still winning games. Let's not be crazy here.
Right, yeah.
And then Lamar Jackson gets hurt. And you're like, okay, well, now this thing's completely off the rails. You can't lose your franchise QB. This year feels different because the offense is actually playing to the strengths of their players. Like, Zay Flowers is a dude, man. Like, that guy is a dude, and he is their number 1 wide receiver option. Now, Mark Andrews is their number 1 target. But Zay Flowers finally gives him something on the perimeter where Lamar Jackson doesn't have to throw everything in the middle. To me, that takes him to the next level. Like, he can beat you on third downs. He gives you something on third downs. And this defense, man, they are aggressive. They fly around. Mike McDonald is like a burgeoning star. He's going to get a head coaching job in the next 2 years. I think right now, this Ravens team, it just comes down to trust. But I think they have everything right there that would tell you that they can win a Super Bowl. It's just Do I believe it, or are we going to wait to see it, Tyson? That's the real question that I have.
I mean, dude, they're up 17-3 at the end of the first quarter against a team that really, like, realistically has no business scoring on the Baltimore Ravens defense. Like, we're saying, if Deshaun Watson, if that version shows up, they might be one of the Final Four teams. Is it like that's because of where they were able to get it to by the time the second half started? There's no reason, right, that Dustin Hopkins should get either one of those field goals he gets in the second quarter. And then Odell scores, puts him up 24-9. Okay, you're breathing a little bit. That's game. What? Elijah Moore is wide open? How are we not covering? Like, they have two wide receivers. How you can't cover both of them? And look, if this team can't run the ball, which they weren't able to do against Cleveland, right? I think Lamar was the leading rusher with like 40 yards or something for the team. They're screwed. Like, they're dead. And look, we can't get through this whole thing without mentioning the fact that the Bengals just laid an egg. An absolute, like, they got gifted the game by the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud finally throws a pick. Our boy Cam Taylor-Britt takes it down to the 3-yard line. They punch it in. Okay, the Bengals are going to win this game. They're going to escape. They're going to stay right with everybody else in the AFC North. And then CJ, a rookie quarterback, throwing to Noah Brown and Tank Dell and Dalton Schultz, marches down the field to beat you. And I understand it's week 10, it's the regular season, weird things happen, and that's not always indicative of the way the playoffs are going to go. Dude, if it keeps happening, then it might be. It might be. With all of these AFC North teams, the Steelers can't score. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to get housed by somebody because they're not going to be able to score enough in those moments, in those games. The Browns are going to be able to keep everything close, and I think they're scarier to play than everybody else in the division because we kind of know I don't think that Baltimore's striking a bunch of fear into, Baltimore feels like Tennessee. When Tennessee was winning 11 games, 12 games, and it was like, actually, you know what? They feel like the Ravens. They feel like the Ravens of those same years where it was like, yeah, they're going to make the playoffs, and they're going to be scary. And then somebody's going to show up with a better offense. These teams can't score enough to win the Super Bowl. And that's just what it is. And you can look and be like, oh, it's 33-31. Both the defenses scored touchdowns. Both the defenses got tons of takeaways. Those aren't necessarily sticky week to week, right? And so if your offense can only generate 25 points, that's not going to be good enough against Pat Mahomes. It's just not.
And it feels like the Bengals are the outlier of the division, right? It's like they're the one with the highest ceiling of the offense, right? When you're like, oh, they can compete and their defense can maybe make enough plays to keep them in the game if necessary. And that's the only one, because the rest of everybody else is like pretty carbon copy. Like, okay, yeah, the Browns scored 33 on the second best defense in the NFL. This game was just like a track meet. Weirdly, it was like one of those classic NFL games where everybody thought this was going to be like 12-9 and instead it was 40-40. So take that with a grain of salt. The Ravens, I think, besides the Bengals, do have the highest ceiling on offense. Yeah. And I think
they've scored like 270 points this year. Like they've scored a ton of points. They have
the highest playoff point differential in the league, I believe.
I mean, what? They beat the Lions by 32. They beat the Seahawks by 40. Like, if this team makes the Super Bowl, they're running away with it because Lamar Jackson scores 40 points every time he plays an NFC team. The problem is he just got to see people familiar with them on the way through.
270 points scored, and they do have the highest point differential in the NFL. So, I mean, it's been impressive for what the Ravens have done. And again, they should be 10-0.
Right. That's my main gripe with this team is it's like, and we picked them to make the Super Bowl as a value play. That it was the Ravens all day, and I'm not necessarily backing off that. But what I'm saying is they haven't been as good as we're pretending they've been because really good teams don't give games away. They just don't. And Baltimore finds a way consistently year over year to be clearly eye test and statistically better than who they're playing. And they find a way to lose those games.
Okay, let's get into real or Fugazi. Now, this is going to be a speed round here, and you mentioned it. The Jags got absolutely annihilated. So I want to start there. What do you think of your Jags? Because you love Doug Peterson. I'm not a Doug guy. I'm one of the few Eagles people who aren't. But what do you think? Jags, real or Fugazi?
Bro, they're from AliExpress.com. This is the fakest good team I've ever seen. Like, how many, like, look, I might be the preeminent Trevor Lawrence hater in the world, but I'm victory lapping right now. Like, it's not been good. Like, this whole generational thing was BS from the start with this guy. But the second half of his rookie year was better. And then last year, the second half of that season was fantastic. And it was like, okay, that guy lives in there somewhere. They're going to get it out. I think he might just be this guy. Like, I think that he might be able to reach those highs very sporadically. But consistency-wise, this Jaguars team is not going to be good enough in this current iteration. Dude, what are they doing on offense? What is the game plan?
I have no clue. Do they want to run the ball? Because when they run the ball with power, with ETN, the offense looks good.
They kick the shit out of people.
When they just sit back and drop back. And I think that's the thing. There's real questions I have with Trevor Lawrence. No, and it's like, you can't say that. It's sacrilegious. This guy's come up small in big moments. Like, let's not forget,
since he was 18.
If the Chargers didn't absolutely charger that playoff game last year, this guy threw 4 picks in the first half.
Right.
He was horrendous. So I'm with you, man. I'm leaning on the side of Fugazi. Tyson, there's a real opportunity here for the Houston Texans to win this division.
If Houston wins the division, can CJ Stroud win MVP that way?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's going to get close. I think it might get close.
Man, that would be something, and that would be bad for my my bet that I placed here. I would be absolutely furious. How about this team? I think I'm going to know, but we're doing speed round. What do you think about the Cowboys? Because they've lost to real teams they played, but they bludgeoned horrible teams. But what do you think about the Cowboys? Are they a real team, or are they Fugazi? I
think they're real. Like, I do. Like, I think this team is super good. It doesn't change. Like, they got housed by the 49ers, who are also pretty good. They lost to the Eagles, who are also pretty good. Right? It's tough to judge, because it's Dallas. And like you mentioned, the Chargers charging, and we talk about the Cowboys cowboying, and that could happen again. I don't know anybody that wants to play these guys in the playoffs, man. This team they are nasty.
Yeah, I agree. To me, it goes Eagles, Niners, Cowboys in the NFC. Like the Lions, I love them. I love Dan Campbell. We were big Dan Campbell guys before this even started. And I think it'd be hard pressed for people to say, what are you talking about? Look at the Lions. I think they've been super impressive. Tyson, they only have a plus 38 point differential. Their defense and spots can be got. Like you can throw on the secondary. And I think that's where they can get into trouble in the playoffs. This is just projecting forward, right? Like we're not talking about right now, like who's a better team right now? Well, you can say the Lions because they're 7-2, and the teams they've lost to have actually been good teams. I mean, you got to throw the Cardinals in there if we're talking about the Cowboys. But I think they're a real team, the Cowboys. I think in the playoffs, they're built to play in the playoffs. I don't think you can say that about past iterations of the Cowboys.
The only thing is that, like as we said before the season, and as we'll continue to say, Tony Pollard's not a 1. Tony Pollard might be the best 1B in the NFL. He is not a 1. He's allergic to the end zone. That was like disgraceful. I mean, to start the game, it's like we're going to give this guy the ball 3 times down here. You got 1 yard to go, buddy. Rico Dowdle looks like he has more pop, which that's not where you want to be if you're Dowdle. So if they can't run the ball, they're screwed. And then quickly on the Lions, I think it's because Dan Campbell's the head coach, but we don't really counter or factor in like we all talk about this team like they're so physical and they just want to get after you and hit you. And the offensive line is a bunch of road, which they are. The offensive line is awesome. They're kind of playing a finesse brand of football. They are.
Which is working out for them. I will say
right.
Jared Goff is good, dude. Jared Goff is good.
I think that's the separator. I was putting words in your mouth. I guess I should have asked. But between the Eagles, the Niners, and the Cowboys, I would assume that the physicality is kind of the main differentiator there for you.
I put the defensive physicality. I think the offense, they can be physical.
Yeah, they're physical on offense.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's right. Like defense and linebacker, I still think there's something to be desired there.
Do you think Leighton Vander Esch's injury today affects how you feel about the Cowboys at all? Because he's been good this year. He's out for the year.
I think they're in trouble in the run game. I think they can. Yeah, definitely does for me.
And then for the Seahawks here, I don't know, dude. Like I'm pretty sure they're fake. Like right. I'm pretty sure. Like it doesn't feel at all like this team is real, but it also feels like they're just one rotation away from clicking, and then all of a sudden the Seahawks are going to be really scary because that defense is awesome. And for as much shit as we've given Geno Smith, he had a really good game against the Commanders. Not to start, but to finish, right? And that's kind of the important thing here. Tyler Lockett, try to bury him as much as you want. Like Tyler Lockett's the one. As much as we want DK Metcalf so badly to be the one, and we want Jackson Smith and Jigba to be a thing so bad, all Tyler Lockett's going to do is be open. And,
Yep.
that I think that like aesthetically, they don't feel real, but they just keep kind of winning games. They're not real in the sense they could win the Super Bowl. They're real in the sense they could probably beat anybody in the NFC in a one-off.
I'm going to say Fugazi because I don't believe in Geno Smith. The regression he's had, it was so obvious that it was going to come, Tyson. And he's back to being a bottom half quarterback. Not a bottom third where he was to start his career, but his completion percentage is way down, which affects this offense. They're not running the football as effectively as I thought they would be able to. Maybe that's something to do with, you get two solid running backs, Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. You just, okay, they'll at least lift the tide, but it comes down to the offensive line, and they haven't been able to develop that position very well the past few years. Maybe even longer than that, if we're being completely honest. I mean, the amount that Russell Wilson had to run around was insane. And so I think that hurts them. And when you rely on Geno Smith, who's clearly taken a step back, more tape on him, defenses kind of know what his tendencies are, that hurts what they're able to do. And then this defense, yes, it's been great since Jamal Adams has come back. You're going to have to put up points. And since that time when they were dominant, the Ravens shredded them up. Commanders did a pretty good job. Maybe it's just a couple week blip that we see in the NFL, and they're actually going to go back to their level a little bit next few weeks. We'll see, but I'm going to call them Fugazi. I don't believe in this.
Is Ken Walker the best home run hitter in the NFL right now?
Or Brees? I think because Brees
got to be one of the two of them. I think.
Yeah, it's one of the two.
Which, it's a scary, scary thing if you're the Seattle Seahawks, because their offense is being propped up essentially off of random 70-yard pop plays by Ken Walker, it feels.
Well, I know a team who has a bunch of them. How about the Dolphins?
Real as it gets, brother.
So they take the week off, and they're kind of out of sight, out of mind, right? They're 6-3. Everybody was roasting them. We got a new flavor of the month that we want to criticize, right? Like they're like, yes, Buffalo, get them. You say real as it gets. Why is that? Why do you think that?
Still, I think the physicality is going to be a huge issue. I do. But there's just something to be said about a team that can drop 40 on anybody. And they can, and I know they didn't in Germany against the Chiefs, and that's what we're going to focus on. And they didn't on Sunday Night Football in a game where the Eagles come out with the Kelly Greens on look, dude, the 07 Pats could have walked into the link that night and they were getting housed too. That was not a very favorable environment. Look, if Jalen Waddle can, get his stuff together as far as the injuries go, because he's missing 4 or 5 possessions here or there, it seems, every game, we're going to have a better idea. Brad, the best rookie performer of the year is Devon Achane, and he hasn't played in 4 weeks. And I think that might kind of start to sway people's opinions when he comes back, because Raheem Mostert was fantastic and has been fantastic to start the year. He's 31. He's never played this many games in a row in his life. Jeff Wilson's coming back. Everyone wants to make Jeff Wilson a thing. Jeff Wilson is the same guy from the 49ers that we all watched, right? And I don't know if they're good enough to win a Super Bowl, but they are indeed real. And I think right now they might be. Would you be crazy saying the Dolphins are the 3rd best team in the AFC?
No, I don't think so.
And if that's not real, then I can't call them Fugazi.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're real. And what's their ceiling as a Super Bowl? Probably not. But I think their ceiling's AFC Championship game for sure. Right. I mean, I think when Achane comes back, we're going to see the Dolphins offense return to what it was. The rushing attack's going to be there. Mostert doesn't have to be the bell cow. Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to be able to go into that 3rd down back role, which is what he really should be. He's a good pass catcher, can be explosive in spurts. And then you're going to rotate off between Achane and Mostert. I think that's where they want to be offensively. And then you're going to have a little bit more timing here with Vic Fangio in that defense. And I've been cautioning everybody all season, don't just expect it to be a Fangio defense immediately. I think now is where we're going to start to see some improvements. One, Jalen Ramsey's back. With the bye week, he's been able to get involved, been able to get into football shape a little bit more. And I think now, about 10 weeks in, 11 weeks in, the 10th game for the Dolphins, we're going to start to see the returns on this defense a little bit more. And I do think that's going to make them a bit scarier. So, yeah, I think they're a real football team for sure. How about this? Your boy, the Vikings. We got to throw them in there. I can't believe we're doing this. We're writing them off for dead. They're 6-4. They've won 5 in a row, Tyson. They're 5 in a row. They were 1-4. Oh my God. What do you think? Real or Fugazi for the Minnesota Vikings?
Well, first of all, I do want to say that I'm pretty upset at Minnesota because Kevin O'Connell has thrown a massive wrench into my Dan Campbell Coach of the Year bets, along with my D'Amico Ryan's Coach of the Year bets, because it feels like he might just jump from the rafters and snag this thing. This is wildly impressive, just wildly impressive what this team's able to do. They got to be real. They got to be real, because if the alternative is like if they're fake, they're the Vikings from the first 3 weeks of the season. And they're clearly not that. Like, this team is scary. And I don't think that this is going to maintain. So maybe in that sense, they're Fugazi. Like, one of these weeks, they're going to score 3 points, right? Alexander Madison is a pretty good 1B. He will never be a 1. Yes, 100%. And now it's Ty Chandler, who is the 5th best running back out of North Carolina in the last 4 years, right? It's like
the other one got cut today.
Yeah, Michael Carter, man, that's crazy. But the offense is electric, and the defense is just going to make you sweat. And I think for those reasons, like, they're not going to win the NFC North, but they might make the playoffs, which
it's crazy.
After 3 weeks, everyone was like, man, Caleb Williams is going to look pretty cool throwing it to Justin Jefferson. And now it's like, are they going to get Penix? Like, where's this team going to be at? Just trade for Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, so I'm going to say Fugazi for the sake of the game here. I'm going to say Fugazi. Now, what's real is Kevin O'Connell's a damn good football coach.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, really good offensive mind. I mean, when he steps up in that locker room, that dude is a leader. Knows how to lead. Knows what buttons to push. And I think he's a real head coach. On that surface, like what they're doing now, it's a real performance. They're a Fugazi team. I just can't. Like Josh Dobbs and a bunch of guys that Brian Flores had the blitz at a 48% clip earlier in the season. It's not a real football team. This is smoke and mirrors right now. And I respect it that they're winning 5 in a row in the NFL. And that's not, I mean, Dobbs a couple, and then 3 of them were Kirk. But my goodness, this has been an impressive run. You got to tip your cap to them.
Would the Vikings win the NFC South?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
I think so. Probably, right? Like, this offense, nobody else can score with them. It's crazy.
So dumb.
Closing here, Texans. They're getting a lot of buzz and a lot of hype. I mean, we both loved the D'Amico Ryan's hire, and we're looking like geniuses for that. What do you think? Is this a real team right now?
No, I don't think so. Like, I think the talk of them, if they overtake the Jags, then absolutely. But I don't think that's going to happen. I know I just said the Jags were fake, but that doesn't mean that means the Jaguars are fake relative to my own expectations that I put in my dumb brain before the season started. Houston you could talk yourself into them being real for the exact opposite reason. CJ Stroud is as real as it gets. Tank Dell is real. That defense is real. Will Anderson, what a dumb pick. Why would you ever take a edge rusher, the highest paid position in football outside of a quarterback, at pick number 3? He's been a pretty good player. Jalen Petrie is a pretty good player. Derek Stingley is a pretty good player. They are building blue chippers all over this thing. It's just hard to talk yourself into, again, like Nico Collins and Noah Brown and Dalton Schultz and like all these guys. They might make the playoffs, which would be fantastic. And I'm cautioning everybody right now, if I can, please don't set these unrealistic expectations on this team going forward because they are ahead of the timeline that they have internally in the building. They didn't expect to make the playoffs this year. The playoffs are next year's thing. If they make the playoffs right now, I don't think Houston's front office and brain trust, a lot of them are coming over from New England, is going to say, all right, let's speed it up. Let's sell some of these. We got cap space. We got this, that, and the third. Let's sell all these third-round picks. We don't need them. We want to make the playoffs. We'll go to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're dumb enough to do that, man. I think that this is a slow boil, and by the time it gets there, like when T. Higgins is playing for this team next season,
oh my God,
that's when we lose. Oof. That's when the brakes are off the train, brother.
Yeah, it's Fugazi right now. They are Fugazi right now. You use eloquently. I mean, beautiful. Also, D'Amico, how good is this? Being a head coach is a lot better when you're winning. Yeah, I'd say you get some job security, but this is who they got next: Cardinals. Home Cardinals, home Jags, home Broncos. You get 3 in a row, and they played much better at home. At Jets, at Titans, home Browns, home Titans again, at Colts to close the season. Jeez, Pete, man. I mean, we're looking at a real opportunity for this team. A real
It'll be
opportunity for
fantastic.
this team.
But you can also look at those games and be like, yeah, but Kyler could beat him, right?
Right.
And this team, like,
The Jets
that's
defense.
yes, exactly. Because like we're not very far removed from this team not getting off the bus in Carolina.
Exactly. And that's the thing we got to remember too. Like CJ Stroud is progressing and he's progressed and he looks here and he's arrived. Like you said, they're ahead of schedule. And what happens? Sometimes you trip when you're ahead of schedule. You're moving too quick. So we'll see if that happens for them. I mean, it's been awesome. What do we know? Also, back half of seasons, adjustments come, and that's normally when rookies can fall off. Doesn't seem like that's going to be the case with Stroud so far, but you never know. And if that reality does hit, we're going to start to see, oh yeah, that's right. This team was picking 2 and then traded up in the draft, things like that. We're going to start to see that come to fruition. But hey, these are kind of our Texans now. I'm rooting for them.
We've been on the trend. Do you think that the Rookie of the Year trophy is already engraved? And do you think it says CJ Stroud, or you think it says like his full name?
I think full name.
That's nice. He's got I can't remember it off the top of my head. I know it ends in a 4 or like a IV, which confuses me because I don't think there's a J in his real name. And so he can't be Junior the 4th. Shout out to Dan Patrick. Maybe he could be, but yeah, it's been impressive.
Yeah, I don't know. Coleridge, Bernard, Stroud the 4th. Or
yeah, where's the J? He can't be Junior the 4th. Or maybe, I mean, if he is, that's a gangster move and that's a power move, and that's why he's so good, probably.
His father, Coleridge Bernard Stroud the 3rd.
That makes
sense.
I bet you his grandpa was Coleridge Stroud the 2nd. Maybe he's the J.
Maybe he's the J. So maybe just pass it down. Oh, that's pretty sweet though. I didn't know that. That's what you get on I Said What I Said, baby. How about that? Tyson, any money making time for you this early in the week? I know sometimes we try to beat lines, but anything for you so far?
No, I mean, I got hammered this last weekend. I was on the wrong side of almost all of those field goals. So I'm just going to lick my wounds here and reevaluate on Wednesday.
Yeah, same. So in the meantime, though, other picks. We got a ton of sports going on. Where can they find these selections?
It'll be in the Chalkboard app. It's on the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. It's just a little community of people throwing down whatever bets that they have. If you want to hop in there and fade our college football picks, that is a welcome and probably profitable idea. The group name is ISWIS Presents the Roundtable Bets. Just search that up. We'll let you right in. It's free. We ended up getting a couple UFC specials home this weekend for some decent prop money there. So that was fun. We have college basketball is rolling, baby. And this is like, if you want to make money on college basketball, don't wait till March. You got to do it now.
This is the time to do it. This is the time to do it for sure. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and share the show. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button on the way out. If you're listening in podcast form, please rate, review. If you haven't already, give us a 5 stars. Let us know something we can improve on in the comments or anything like that. And stay connected with us on our socials, X, Instagram, TikTok. The handle is the same at ISWIS_pod. We'll be back later in this week talking college football, like Tyson mentioned. We're getting the nut cutting time, man. Like, it's freaking 2 more games in the regular season, and then we got conference championships, and we got bowl season, playoffs. We got stuff to talk about. Oh, we got stuff to talk about. So we'll be back later this week. Like I said, we hope you all enjoy. Until then, talk to you then, guys. Peace.